The grandfather clock chiming exactly 2:35 in the morning echoed hollowly through the suffocating silence. My name is Madison, at 27 years old, attempting to finally break the invisible chains binding my entire existence. A handheld signal jammer clutched tightly in my trembling palm allowed me to bypass the advanced smart locks securing the massive estate. Every step across the cold driveway felt like crossing a heavily guarded border toward the freedom I desperately craved. I paid cash for an unmarked taxi ride directly to Austin Bergstrom International Airport as my only chance to escape their relentless control. Welcome to our channel where we share exclusive stories about family secrets. So please subscribe to experience this thrilling new journey. Panic hit me like a crushing wave when the airline agent coldly informed me that my boarding pass had been permanently revoked. The system rejected every remaining credit card with humiliating beeps, proving my family had already frozen my entire financial life. My carefully calculated escape plan shattered into pieces right before my eyes while watching the last scheduled flight take off without me. Being completely alone in the middle of the desolate airport terminal left me vulnerable to whatever consequences they prepared for my defiance. Unfamiliar footsteps echoing behind me forced me to turn around expecting security guards, but an exhausted older man stepped much closer instead. His weary eyes locked onto mine right before his voice broke the heavy silence with a question that completely stopped my racing heart. He paused just a few feet away from me before gently asking the impossible question, "Is that Madison?" The chilling heat of pure terror radiated down my spine when the exhausted face belonging to the man standing before me finally registered in my mind. He was my grandfather Arthur, looking significantly older than the vibrant corporate titan I remembered from a decade ago. Arthur wasted no time with emotional greetings and immediately revealed a truth that shattered every lie my family had carefully constructed over the past 10 years. He had never abandoned the company to live peacefully abroad, as my father Richard and my mother Brenda had repeatedly claimed to the press. My parents had secretly declared him mentally incompetent using falsified medical records before forcing him into a highly secure private psychiatric facility hidden deep within the Swiss Alps. Hearing those horrific words made the suffocating reality of my own existence become violently clear. I finally understood that my parents keeping me confined inside our heavily guarded estate had absolutely nothing to do with my supposedly fragile health. They orchestrated my isolation to secure complete manipulation over my massive trust fund the moment I reached legal adulthood. My inheritance was the only remaining obstacle preventing them from achieving total corporate dominance, making me their most valuable prisoner. They drugged me for years until I found a sympathetic nurse willing to smuggle my letters to an outside investigator, Arthur whispered, while gripping his worn jacket tightly to steady his trembling hands. I knew they would eventually try to do the exact same thing to you once you became a financial threat. A sudden blaring alert from the airport internal communication system violently interrupted our reunion. The red flashing lights near the ticketing counters confirmed my worst fears regarding their extensive surveillance capabilities. Scanning my passport moments earlier had triggered an automated security lockdown linked directly to our family enterprise. The heavy glass doors at the terminal entrance slid open to reveal Dad's head of security, Marcus, stepping into the building alongside two imposing bodyguards wearing tailored black suits. Marcus scanned the deserted seating areas with cold calculation while whispering urgent commands into his earpiece. His terrifying presence meant my parents were already awake and mobilizing every available resource to drag me back to my gilded cage. "We need to move right now before they seal the exits and lock down the entire perimeter," I urged while grabbing my suitcase handle with sweaty palms. We had practically no time to maneuver through the main concourse without being spotted by their sweeping formation. Marcus began walking purposefully toward our section of the terminal, with his bodyguards fanning out to block the main escalators while communicating aggressively into their hidden microphones. Arthur quickly gestured for me to follow him toward a darkened maintenance corridor completely out of public view. He pulled out a faded corporate access card from his days directly managing the global logistics division of our empire. The outdated magnetic strip surprisingly bypassed the electronic lock with a quiet click that granted us immediate entry into the restricted baggage sorting area. We navigated through a confusing maze of moving conveyor belts and industrial machinery, while the sound of heavy footsteps echoed somewhere behind us. We finally burst out into the humid Texas night air near the loading docks, where an old unmarked transport van sat idling in the shadows. Arthur climbed into the driver's seat while I locked the heavy passenger doors securely behind us. We drove away from the airport, but we mutually decided against fleeing Austin entirely. Running away would only delay the inevitable confrontation with my parents, because we needed to establish a secure underground base right here in the city to systematically dismantle the corrupt empire they stole from us. 4 a.m. arrived as our vehicle finally rolled to a complete stop outside a weathered brick house hidden deeply within the industrial district of East Austin. Stepping inside the dimly lit safe house revealed my best friend Harper already waiting for us while gripping a heavy duffel bag stuffed completely with freshly withdrawn cash. Her comforting presence provided an immediate sense of emotional grounding during the chaotic aftermath of my sudden disappearance from the family estate. She quickly confirmed my worst suspicions regarding the swift financial retaliation executed by the ruthless people controlling my inheritance shortly after they discovered my empty bedroom. You need to understand that every single bank card connected to your name was completely blocked by the financial institutions over 2 hours ago, Madison Harper stated firmly while decisively pushing the heavy bag filled with banded $100 bills across the wooden table. Relying exclusively on untraceable paper currency became our only viable survival strategy moving forward against adversaries possessing unlimited digital reach across the entire banking sector. Arthur reached into his worn leather briefcase to produce a thick stack of severely aged financial documents covered in faded ink alongside dense legal jargon. Spreading the complicated papers out under the harsh overhead light exposed multiple suspicious wire transfers, draining massive financial resources directly out of my legally protected trust fund. Every single fraudulent transaction bore the unmistakable signature belonging to my sister Chloe, though the official paperwork offered absolutely no context regarding her true personal motivations. Looking closely at her familiar handwriting forced me to seriously wonder whether she actively participated in the grand corporate betrayal or simply succumbed to the overwhelming pressure constantly exerted by my parents. Eliminating any possibility of being digitally tracked by their highly funded private security teams required taking immediate, irreversible action against the smartphone resting heavily inside my jacket pocket. Prying the metallic casing apart allowed me to forcefully extract the internal battery before completely crushing the embedded global positioning chip under the hard heel of my leather boot. Gathering the shattered electronic remains together felt incredibly therapeutic before handing them directly over to Harper for secure transportation away from our secret operational base. She carefully dropped the fragmented hardware components into a specialized Faraday bag, designed specifically to completely block all outgoing cellular signals before taking them toward a commercial electronic waste crushing facility located entirely across the city. Watching those ruined communication devices disappear permanently severed the final remaining digital tether connecting me to the oppressive life I left behind forever. Arthur took a slow sip of his bitter black coffee before lowering his voice into a deeply serious register. I have a trusted old acquaintance who has been quietly investigating my falsified medical records for several consecutive years out of pure loyalty, and he is currently waiting for our call. The strategic foundation established by Arthur provided a tremendous tactical advantage, just moments before our final crucial ally safely approached the secure building. Heavy footsteps echoed near the front entrance as specialized data investigator Caleb stepped through the doorway carrying several heavy protective cases containing independent servers alongside highly encrypted communication equipment. Setting up his sophisticated hardware on the sturdy living room floor immediately transformed the abandoned residence into a fully functional cyber operations center. Caleb quickly initiated a complex network protocol designed specifically to mask our true physical location from any external corporate surveillance attempts. His extremely timely arrival officially solidified our newly formed resistance alliance, dedicated entirely to uncovering the massive financial crimes maliciously orchestrated by my parents. 9 in the morning the following day arrived with a heavy sense of anticipation as Caleb finalized the complex digital handshake between his portable server units and the massive internal network belonging to the family corporation. He skillfully utilized the stolen administrative credentials belonging to a former IT contractor who had been dismissed during the previous month to bypass the formidable zero-trust security architecture protecting their most sensitive digital assets. The atmosphere inside our cramped safe house became incredibly tense while we watched several windows of encrypted data stream across his multiple monitors in a frantic search for the truth. Caleb maintained a steady hand despite the immense pressure of knowing that every single second spent inside their network increased the probability of being discovered by their elite cybersecurity team. The security model utilized by the corporation operates on a strict zero-trust protocol, meaning I have exactly 3 minutes to navigate their systems before the master administrator identifies this unauthorized access. Caleb whispered, without once shifting his intense gaze from the rapidly scrolling lines of green code. The flickering surveillance feed momentarily captured my father Richard standing inside the executive boardroom alongside Chloe, while they aggressively coordinated several private security teams to intensify the search for my current location. Observing my sister actively participating in the hunt for me with such cold determination officially extinguished any lingering hope that she was being coerced into assisting my parents with their scheme. Her betrayal felt like a sharp physical blow to my chest, yet it simultaneously provided the necessary resolve required to continue our dangerous mission against the family that had forsaken me. We watched them analyze several digital maps of the Austin metropolitan area, while realizing that Marcus was likely already closing in on Kua Chung Toi general vicinity based on their calculated search patterns. Caleb eventually identified the specific physical server room where the highly sensitive G-Trust authorization archive was stored under heavy biometric encryption within the most secure levels of the headquarters. He explained that this particular database was air-gapped from the main cloud network to prevent remote hacking attempts, which meant we would have to gain physical access to the server rack itself. I scrutinized the intricate architectural diagrams of the massive Austin skyscraper while searching for a vulnerability that would bypass their multiple layers of armed guards and sophisticated motion sensors. The blueprints revealed a complex network of industrial ventilation shafts that connected the underground maintenance tunnels directly to the high-security server vault. We need to acquire a professional HVAC maintenance jumpsuit immediately because the corporate facility protocols allow external contractors to service the industrial ventilation units during the graveyard shift without raising any significant suspicion from the primary security team. I asserted while calculating the immense risks involved in the upcoming infiltration. Caleb immediately began configuring a specialized high-speed data duplication tool capable of bypassing physical hardware locks to mirror the entire archive onto a secure drive in under 60 seconds. The device was specifically designed to handle the massive throughput required for such a large database while maintaining the integrity of the encrypted files during the extraction process. Arthur watched the preparations with a mixture of pride and concern, while knowing that his legacy now rested entirely on the shoulders of the granddaughter he had nearly lost forever. Our plan was officially set in motion as we prepared to strike at the very heart of the empire that Arthur had built and Richard had subsequently corrupted. We spent the remaining daylight hours rehearsing every movement to ensure that our presence within the building would remain completely undetected by the thermal imaging cameras. 2 days later found the primary financial news outlets in Austin flashing urgent headlines regarding my sudden mysterious disappearance from the prominent family estate. The high-priced legal team representing my parents released a carefully crafted statement issuing a welfare concern notice to every major media platform across the state. They maliciously fabricated a narrative claiming my mental health had severely deteriorated to create a legitimate legal pretext for freezing all my remaining assets. This tactical move allowed them to effectively manipulate public opinion while ensuring I remained financially paralyzed and unable to seek independent legal representation against their authority. Watching the televised broadcast from our cramped safe house confirmed that my parents were willing to destroy my entire reputation to maintain their corporate power. They are intentionally avoiding a direct police report because Dad is utilizing his elite PR team to manipulate the media narrative into proving my mental instability. I remarked, while pointing toward the flickering screen that displayed my own face alongside clinical descriptions of my supposed breakdown. Marcus remained a significant threat due to his extensive background as a former tactical operative who quickly identified several suspicious anomalies within the corporate network infrastructure. His professional instincts led him to believe that an internal data leak was occurring, which forced him to begin narrowing down potential physical locations for our hidden base. We listened through Caleb's intercepted communication channel as the sharp sound of static heralded a new set of commands being issued to the security perimeter. Marcus sounded increasingly frustrated, while his voice crackled through the radio speakers with a chilling authority that made the hair on my neck stand up. Check every single login log from the past 48 hours because I am starting to suspect that someone within the internal team is leaking sensitive data to an outside source. Marcus barked over the radio, while his subordinates scrambled to execute his aggressive demands immediately. Identifying the escalating danger meant we had to execute our diversionary strategy before Marcus successfully traced the signal back to our industrial district hiding spot. Harper volunteered to drive Arthur's recognizable luxury vehicle toward the state border, while carrying a sophisticated signal transmitter designed to mimic the unique electronic signature of my smartphone. This maneuver was specifically intended to scatter the security forces across the vast Texas highways, while leading Marcus away from the corporate headquarters. We watched from the shadows as Harper accelerated into the night, with the decoy signal broadcasting a path that appeared to be a desperate escape attempt toward the north. The successful diversion provided a narrow window of opportunity for Caleb and me to approach the massive corporate tower, while the primary security response was focused on the highway. We utilized a nondescript white maintenance van acquired through Caleb's various underground contacts to blend in with the late-night service traffic entering the downtown area. Navigating through the complex underground parking garage required absolute precision to avoid triggering any secondary weight sensors or thermal imaging cameras monitoring the service entrance. My heart hammered against my ribs as we pulled into a darkened maintenance bay located directly beneath the primary ventilation shafts leading to the server vault. We remained motionless inside the vehicle for several agonizing minutes while waiting for the security patrol to complete their scheduled rotation around the loading docks. The relative silence of the massive concrete structure provided a haunting backdrop to the final stages of our high-stakes infiltration mission against the people who stole my grandfather's legacy. 11:30 at night found the subterranean hallway leading toward the physical server vault completely submerged in the chilling blue illumination of the auxiliary backup power system. I successfully inserted the sophisticated hardware decryption device Caleb constructed directly into the primary network port of the central mainframe rack to begin our critical digital heist. The customized duplication tool instantly initiated the massive extraction process required to download the entire G-Trust authorization archive alongside several highly classified hidden video recordings. Watching the glowing progress bar crawl agonizingly across the small digital display felt like an absolute eternity, while the immense cooling fans roared deafeningly throughout the cavernous underground chamber. The highly trained technicians operating the Corporate Security Operations Center unexpectedly detected the massive volume of encrypted data being continuously siphoned out of their supposedly isolated network environment. Those vigilant network monitors immediately escalated the critical situation by initiating an emergency phone call directly to Chloe to report the unprecedented security breach occurring right beneath her feet. "Hurry up, Madison, because the SOC team just caught our data signal while Chloe is already ordering a complete lockdown of all building entrances." Caleb's voice echoed urgently through my encrypted earpiece. Marcus received the frantic emergency dispatch from the corporate headquarters while navigating the dark highway miles away from our actual physical location in the city center. The seasoned security chief instantly realized he had fallen completely for our sophisticated decoy tactic involving the false tracking signal moving rapidly toward the distant state border. He furiously commanded his tactical driving team to reverse their current course and accelerate back toward the downtown corporate tower at extremely dangerous speeds to capture us. Snatching the completed data drive from the server port successfully secured the undeniable proof of my parents manipulating the medical records and illegally draining the family trust fund. We only had a few precious seconds to react before the automated security doors sealed me permanently inside the subterranean vault alongside the stolen digital evidence. I forcefully slammed my palm against the heavy red emergency button mounted on the adjacent concrete wall before replying into the open radio channel. "I am activating the emergency clean agent fire suppression system right now, so get ready to start the engine at the back alley exit. The automated emergency lockdown protocols immediately engaged across the entire subterranean level, causing the heavy reinforced steel doors to slam completely shut with a terrifying metallic thud. Pressurized nozzles mounted across the ceiling instantly discharged thick clouds of specialized clean agent gas designed to extinguish chemical fires without damaging the highly sensitive electronic equipment below. The dense chemical fog effectively blinded the high-resolution thermal security cameras monitoring the hallway while providing the perfect visual cover for my desperate physical escape. I forcefully removed the heavy metal grating securing the industrial HVAC ventilation shaft using a specialized maintenance tool acquired during our earlier infiltration of the ground floor. Pulling my body upward into the narrow metal corridor required immense physical effort while the thick suppression gas made breathing increasingly difficult inside the enclosed server room environment. I scrambled rapidly through the dark galvanized steel ductwork while hearing the muffled sounds of heavy tactical boots pounding against the concrete floors far below my current elevated position. Marcus and his heavily armed security team forcefully breached the main server room entrance, only to find an empty chamber filled entirely with thick white suppression gas. Navigating the complex maze of industrial air conditioning vents eventually led me toward the designated extraction point, where Caleb was already waiting with the maintenance van, running quietly in the shadows. 8 in the morning arrived with a palpable sense of electric tension permeating the luxurious corporate auditorium, designated specifically for the highly anticipated annual shareholder assembly. My father stood incredibly confidently behind the polished mahogany podium while preparing to formally announce the successful merger of my massive personal trust fund directly into the overarching corporate financial portfolio to permanently solidify his absolute executive power. The opulent room was packed tightly with wealthy investors wearing expensive tailored suits, who remained completely oblivious to the massive criminal conspiracy operating right beneath their noses for the past decade. He smiled arrogantly at the flashing cameras while believing his tyrannical reign over the family empire had finally become an unassailable reality. This monumental merger transaction will absolutely guarantee a prosperous long-term future for, my father confidently declared, right before Arthur's booming voice completely shattered the heavy silence by shouting, "Your only guaranteed future is spending the rest of your miserable life inside a federal penitentiary, Richard." Caleb had systematically forwarded the entire decrypted database directly to the Department of Justice, alongside the Securities Exchange Commission during the previous night, before brilliantly hijacking the primary audiovisual feed. He utilized his remote access to abruptly cut off the microphone system before broadcasting the incriminating hidden video recordings directly onto the massive presentation screen overlooking the entire stage. The undeniable visual evidence featured my parents explicitly plotting to illegally confine Arthur within the Swiss psychiatric facility, while meticulously forging the legal signatures required to drain my personal accounts. Every single deceptive conversation they had secretly recorded over the years echoed clearly through the state-of-the-art surround sound system for the entire financial world to scrutinize, without mercy. My grandfather alongside me simultaneously pushed through the heavy gilded entrance doors under the blinding glare of the theatrical lighting equipment, which instantly threw the entire board of directors into a state of absolute bewildered shock. Hundreds of wealthy shareholders gasped audibly upon witnessing the supposedly deceased founder walking freely among them, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, demonstrating his complete mental clarity. My parents froze completely in their tracks, with their arrogant faces draining of all color, while staring in absolute terror at the living ghost they thought they had permanently erased from existence. The overwhelming realization that their elaborate web of deceit had finally collapsed under the crushing weight of undeniable truth paralyzed them directly in front of their most important investors. Witnessing the spectacular public collapse of their meticulously constructed criminal empire caused Chloe to completely lose her remaining composure during the ensuing chaotic panic spreading throughout the massive auditorium. She desperately smashed her personal smartphone repeatedly against the hard marble flooring, attempting to permanently destroy any remaining digital evidence connecting her directly to the massive financial fraud. She frantically attempted to quietly slip through the discreet rear emergency exit, but several heavily armed federal agents immediately swarmed her position to physically restrain her wrists behind her back, using heavy steel handcuffs. No, I did not do anything wrong because both of them relentlessly manipulated my decisions while forcefully coercing me into signing those fraudulent authorization documents to steal the money. Chloe screamed hysterically while the unyielding tactical officers dragged her aggressively across the expensive carpets toward the waiting armored transport vehicles parked directly outside the building. My mother desperately covered her pale face with trembling hands while weeping uncontrollably as the federal agents systematically surrounded the main stage to prevent any possibility of a desperate escape attempt by the primary conspirators. The lead investigator firmly approached the podium to formally read the federal arrest warrants, detailing extensive charges of massive corporate embezzlement alongside illegal medical confinement across international borders. The sharp metallic clicking sound of heavy steel handcuffs locking securely around my father's wrists echoed loudly through the suddenly silent room, which officially marked the definitive end of their tyrannical reign over the company. I stood silently beside my grandfather, while proudly watching the federal authorities meticulously dismantle the corrupt hierarchy that had stolen so many precious years of our lives. 1 month after the earth-shattering financial scandal that exposed my family's crimes, I found myself sitting within the spacious new executive office, while the warm morning sunlight streamed through the expansive glass windows overlooking downtown Austin. The silence of the room felt peaceful rather than suffocating because the constant surveillance that defined my previous life had finally been dismantled by the federal authorities. My father, Richard, alongside my mother, Brenda, plus my sister Chloe, officially received their lengthy sentences to be served within a high-security federal correctional facility after the Department of Justice finalized the mountain of evidence we provided. The United States government meticulously confiscated every single illegally acquired asset, including the massive estate, where I was once kept a prisoner, to provide comprehensive restitution for the corporation, alongside my severely depleted trust fund. I finally placed my trembling yet determined signature upon the official legal documents to formally sever all blood ties, while completely terminating every family privilege previously held over my existence by those toxic individuals. This decisive legal maneuver included a permanent refusal of any future visitation requests or hollow reconciliation attempts coming from the people I once believed were my protectors. Choosing to stand alone in the eyes of the law felt like the first breath of real air I had taken since the night I fled the house at 2:35 in the morning. My parents pleaded for mercy during the final sentencing hearing, while Chloe continued to blame everyone but herself for the catastrophic downfall of their corrupt legacy. Their desperate cries for forgiveness echoed through the marble courtroom, but found absolutely no sympathy within my heart after witnessing the years of suffering they inflicted upon Arthur. Arthur successfully reclaimed his rightful position as the head of the global conglomerate, while beginning the patient daily process of guiding me through every complex stage of managing the massive commercial empire he originally built from nothing. He often sat across from me in the boardroom with a proud smile while sharing the wisdom he gained during his decades of leadership before his own son betrayed him so ruthlessly. Our relationship blossomed into a partnership based on mutual respect, plus shared trauma, which allowed us to heal the deep emotional wounds caused by the greed of Richard plus Brenda. We worked tirelessly to restructure the corporate culture to ensure that transparency plus ethics became the new foundation for every future business venture we pursued together. Harper, alongside Caleb, have now evolved into my most trusted strategic partners, while forming a resilient network of allies built exclusively upon professional competence, plus unwavering loyalty instead of manipulative deception. Caleb took over the cybersecurity division to ensure that our internal networks remained impenetrable against bat-key future corporate espionage or unauthorized data siphoning attempts. Harper utilized her sharp instincts to manage Kua Chung Toi public relations to help restore the damaged reputation of the company, while emphasizing Kua Chung Toi's new commitment to social responsibility plus ethical governance. Their presence in my life provided the chosen family I desperately needed to navigate the challenges of my sudden elevation to executive power. The corporate tower, which once represented a fortress of lies, had been transformed into a beacon of hope, where truth plus justice finally prevailed over the darkness of familial betrayal. I looked out at the horizon while realizing that my life was no longer a script written by my parents, but a blank page waiting for me to write my own destiny. The weight of the past had finally been lifted, which allowed me to step forward into a future defined by my own choices, plus the genuine connections I chose to maintain. The lesson. When looking back at the thick stack of legal documents severing my family ties resting on the mahogany desk, I Koi Kung allowed myself to exhale a long breath of pure relief. The most terrifying form of manipulation does not always manifest through physical threats or loud outbursts, because it often slithers beneath the deceptive mask of familial love plus protection. Your biological bloodline was never intended to be a legal certificate, granting other people the authority to dictate your future or systematically drain your personal freedom. True maturity begins the exact moment you stop manufacturing excuses for the individuals who intentionally inflict emotional pain upon your soul, regardless of their titles. Cutting out toxic relationships even when they involve your own parents or siblings is not an act of cruelty, but a necessary step toward self-preservation. It is a courageous refusal to remain a victim, so you can finally begin constructing a chosen family based on genuine respect, plus unconditional support. Thank you so much for accompanying me on this intense journey toward reclaiming my freedom plus dignity until the very final moments of the story. I truly appreciate the unwavering support of every single person who listened to my path toward justice. Do you agree with my final decision to never forgive the people who betrayed me so deeply? Please share your honest thoughts plus personal perspectives within the comment section below. Remember to like this video plus subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories coming soon. Goodbye for now.